Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents ADHD, 3rd edition, by Mark Selikowitz, narrated by Daniel Henning. Publisher's note: in this audio edition, you will hear references to figures, tables, and appendices present in the print and ebook formats of the book. Preface to 3rd edition. 12 years have passed since the 2nd edition of this book was published. Years that have seen many positive changes in the recognition, acceptance, management, and understanding of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. One significant change has been the greater recognition of ADHD in adulthood. This has meant that children with ADHD are now able to continue receiving treatment for their condition, if required, after they have reached adulthood. It has also meant that many adults whose ADHD was not diagnosed when they were younger are now, for the first time, able to understand the nature of the disorder that has caused their lifelong difficulties, and to benefit from having it appropriately treated. Another positive development has been that many governments in Western countries have accepted that ADHD is a bona fide medical condition and now subsidize the medications used to treat the condition and provide funding to support individuals with ADHD during their school and tertiary education. Yet another improvement is that the media are now less likely to publish negative articles or to produce negative TV programs casting doubt on the existence of ADHD or the treatment of the condition without medication. Articles and programs on ADHD now generally relate success stories about children and adults with ADHD who have benefited from the correct diagnosis and treatment of their condition, or, importantly, highlight unmet needs of children and adults with the condition. On the medical front, several new medications have become available to treat ADHD. In addition, some of the older medications have been modified so that their effect lasts longer, thereby avoiding the need to take medication more than once daily. There's also been an enormous increase in research into ADHD. In 2019 alone, 2,364 research papers on ADHD were published in the scientific and biomedical literature. The text in this 3rd edition has been updated to reflect these and other new developments. It is gratifying that nothing in the preceding edition needed to be retracted. As before, the book reflects a conservative and balanced approach based on my long experience of treating many children and adults with ADHD, an approach that has stood the test of time. MS, Sydney, April 2021. Preface to 2nd edition. In this 2nd edition, the text has been updated, as required, to include new developments, but it was gratifying that nothing in the 1st edition needed to be retracted. Research has only confirmed and expanded what we believed 5 years ago. Particularly pleasing has been the ability to include a greater range of treatment options for children and adults with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. The new edition has also been an opportunity to make the text more accessible to its listeners, with the inclusion of key points at the beginning of each chapter and the revision of the text to make it more listener-friendly. This is particularly important in a book about ADHD, as many listeners have attention and learning difficulties that make absorption of text challenging. I have endeavored, as before, to provide balanced information so that listeners can make informed choices. MS, Sydney, January 2009. Preface to 1st edition. Awareness of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, has been growing among both parents and professionals over the past decade. Television programs and newspaper and magazine articles increasingly deal with this common and important condition. Despite this media coverage, ignorance about ADHD is widespread. This book aims to help overcome such ignorance. It provides a practical overview of ADHD for all those who, in the broadest sense of the term, care for children. It will interest parents, teachers, doctors, and psychologists. It will also be of interest to the many other professionals, such as speech therapists and occupational therapists, who come into regular contact with children who struggle to learn or have difficulty behaving appropriately for their age. But if this book merely provides information, it will only partially have fulfilled its purpose. If children with ADHD and their parents are to be helped, knowledge alone will not suffice. It is essential that attitudes to children with this hidden handicap change. It is therefore my hope that this book will lead its listeners to a reappraisal of the way we interpret the developmental difficulties that so many children in our community face. It is hoped that we will banish useless words such as lazy, stupid, and naughty in favor of alternatives that lead us to a deeper understanding of these children, of the difficulties they contend with, and of their special needs. We will also have to appreciate how stressful such children can be to live with, so that we can provide their parents with the support they need. Section 1 and Sections 3 through 7 of the book cover ADHD in a general way. These sections will interest all parents. In Section 2, each of the 8 chapters is devoted to a specific area of development, and parents can select those chapters that are relevant to their child's particular difficulties. To avoid using the cumbersome he or she when referring to the child with ADHD, I've used he in some sections and she in others. All statements apply equally to both sexes unless otherwise specified. I am grateful to the parents of Martine, David, and Peter who let me quote from their stories. I am indebted to my friend and colleague, Dr. Rory McCarthy, with whom I share the approach to the diagnosis and management of ADHD that is reflected in this text. The book has benefited from the regular exchange of ideas that working with Rory makes possible. Finally, I thank my wife, Jill, who proofread the first draft of the typescript and made many valuable comments and suggestions. Her perspective as a teacher and a parent has been of great value. This book is dedicated to her and to my children, Daniel and Anne. With love. Section 1. Introduction. 1. What is ADHD? Key points. ADHD is not a new disorder. It was first described in 1902. It is one of the most common conditions in childhood, affecting as many as 5% of school-aged children and 3% of adults. It occurs in 2 very different forms, one that is mainly a learning difficulty and another that mainly affects behavior. A Tale of 2 Children. Dear Doctor, Martine is now 13 years old and we're concerned about her school progress. She's well behaved and does not get into any trouble at school or at home, and this is why we have left it so long before seeking help. Martine's reports have always been full of comments such as, Martine needs to concentrate more, Martine has good potential if she were not so easily distracted. Martine is a vague, dreamy sort of child. Often when you talk to her, she seems to be in a world of her own. One teacher thought she may be hard of hearing, but we had this tested and her hearing is perfect. When you give her an instruction with more than 3 parts, she loses track of what she has to do. Yesterday, I asked her to go to her room and take the sheets off her bed and put them in the wash. 10 minutes later, I went to her room and found her sitting on her bed. She genuinely did not remember what I had asked her to do. Her memory seems so inconsistent. She can tell you in detail about what happened years ago. Last week, she surprised us by recognizing someone in a photo whom she'd not seen for years, and telling us all about her visit to this person's house very accurately. Yet today, she cannot remember the spelling list she knew yesterday. She's terribly disorganized. She's always losing things. She has to phone her friend most afternoons to find out what homework she's supposed to do. She's also clumsy. She's a terrible fidget. Some bit of her is always squirming when she should be sitting still. But her greatest difficulty is in concentrating on schoolwork. She sits down to her homework with the best of intentions, but she can't seem to persist with it. She's up and down at her desk, and unless I sit with her, nothing gets done. Even then, it is a constant battle, so that the whole family is upset. Getting her to complete assignments for school is impossible unless I do almost the whole thing for her. Her poor concentration is a problem at school as well. Her teachers complain that when all the other children have their eyes glued to their work, Martine is gazing out the window. Her work is often incomplete. Martine says that she would like to become a teacher when she's an adult. We feel she's a clever girl, but if she continues like this, we can't see her achieving anything. Do you think you could help her? Dear Doctor, I'm writing this letter to you before the appointment because I always find it difficult to remember what I wanted to say when I'm sitting in front of a doctor. We are desperate about David, aged 7 years. You are our last resort. We have been to numerous doctors, psychologists, and psychiatrists already. They all make us feel that we are the cause of David's problem. We're tired of being analyzed. We just want help. David has been difficult from the moment he was born. The first 2 of our children were easy babies, but David was irritable from the very beginning. He hardly slept as an infant. He walked earlier than our other 2, and from the time he took his first steps at 9 months, he's been on the go. As a toddler, he was into everything and had to be watched all the time. We tried him on a hyperactivity diet, but it did not help. Now that he is older, he's not as active, but he still never seems to tire, except when he is sick. I feel guilty admitting that it is only when he is ill that I enjoy having him at home. He's like a walking disaster. He takes risks all the time. He's broken his leg twice and has numerous scars. He acts without stopping to think of the consequences, and he never seems to learn from his mistakes. He won't do as he's told, and if we try to discipline him, he becomes abusive and even aggressive. We've tried time out, putting him in his room, when disobedient, to cool down, but he destroys his room, and so it is just not worth it. On 2 occasions, he jumped out of his bedroom window and ran away. Living with David is like walking on eggshells. The slightest frustration sets him off into a rage. But sometimes he will be aggressive for no apparent reason. For example, yesterday his brother was sitting watching television, and David came into the room, walked up to him, and kicked him, out of the blue. He seemed sorry after he'd done it, but I can't understand why he does things like that. Each morning I wake up and get out of bed with a feeling of trepidation, waiting to see what kind of a mood he's in, and what sort of a day we can expect. But even if he is in a good mood, it can change quite suddenly as the least thing sets him off. School has been a disaster for David. After the first week, his teacher called me in to tell me he was impossible to teach. He wanders about the classroom. He calls out in class. He's noisy and he disrupts other children. His books are terribly messy. His work is never completed. The worst thing is that he's very rude to the teachers. He's easily affronted and takes any attempt to discipline him as a personal insult. He always seems to be getting punished, but it does not help. Earlier this term, he was suspended from school for a week for swearing at a teacher. I had to take time off work to stay with him, but I think he actually enjoyed the punishment. He does not get on with the other children in the playground. He's very bossy with them and is not prepared to compromise. He has now earned a reputation as a bully and is ostracized by the other children. He seems to get into punch-ups every day. I'm sure he starts most of these. He will take on children who are older and larger than himself, so he often comes off second best. He was suspended from school for a week last term for punching a boy. The punishment made no difference to David. He was in a fight on his first day back. I don't want you to think that David is always bad. He can be sweet and loving, and often he shows he's genuinely sorry for what he's done, but it never lasts for long. With David, trouble is always around the corner. Most worrying to us now is that David seems to be becoming depressed about his difficulties. Over the last month, he's started saying that he's dumb. He often says, "Mummy, I don't know what is wrong with me." Twice he's said that he wants to kill himself. We are terribly worried. Martine and David both came to see me. My assessments showed that they both had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and they were both greatly helped by treatment for this condition. Martine has the form called the inattentive type of ADHD, while David has the form we call the combined type of ADHD. The conditions are very different, yet they are related to one another. They're like two sides of the same coin. The profiles of the two types are outlined in Table 1.1. There is a third form, known as the hyperactive impulsive type. It is characterized by hyperactivity and/or impulsivity without discernible inattention. This is a diagnosis made exclusively in children under 5 years of age who are at a stage in life when concentration difficulties are difficult to assess. Invariably, once they enter school, children with this form of ADHD are found to have difficulties with attention. It is therefore just an early form of the combined type and will not be discussed further. None of these three forms of the condition is the fault of the parents. Rather, each condition is the result of insufficient quantities of certain chemical messengers in the child's brain. The medicines used to treat all types of ADHD act by increasing the levels of these chemical messengers closer to normal, which enables the child to learn and behave like other children. Careful diagnosis is essential to be certain that the child's difficulties are caused by ADHD and not by some other problem which may require a different treatment. The diagnosis, causes, and treatment of ADHD are discussed in the following chapters. Overview of the features of ADHD. All children with ADHD have some features of the condition. Few have all. While some children with a combined form of ADHD have hyperactivity and impulsivity, some have only hyperactivity, while others have only impulsivity. The features of all types of ADHD are listed in Table 1.2 and are discussed in this chapter. It should be noted that a child without ADHD might have some of the features described here, but a child with ADHD experiences significantly greater difficulties in affected areas of development than the average child of the same age. Features of the inattentive type of ADHD. Poor concentration. Children with ADHD cannot concentrate with the same ease as other children of the same age. The attentional mechanisms in their brains are inefficient. This means that they have great difficulty concentrating on tedious tasks such as schoolwork, which greatly test these mechanisms. Their work often contains many careless errors and shows lack of precision and attention to detail. These children have particular difficulties maintaining attention in a setting where there are many distractions, for example, a classroom. They do better in a one-to-one situation. Children with ADHD usually have far greater difficulty concentrating on things they must listen to rather than things they must look at. Their difficulty listening may be so acute that they appear to have a hearing problem. In milder cases, children will be able to maintain attention for highly motivating and interactive activities, such as video games, and may be able to concentrate on tedious tasks, such as schoolwork, for short periods. However, their inefficient concentrating mechanisms soon fatigue, and their attention falters. The work of such children may be full of good beginnings and poor endings. They may be able to manage relatively well in the first part of the school day, but their performance usually falls off markedly in the second half. When they return from school, they may be very tired and emotionally drained from the great effort of focusing in class. Concentrating on schoolwork may require so much effort from the child that he may be unusually reluctant to start work. When they have work assignments, homework, or revision to do, such children procrastinate far more than their peers. Children with severe ADHD may have difficulty staying on any task for very long, and may be unable to sit and watch a movie or play a game they enjoy. These children may constantly flit from one activity to another. Poor concentration in children with ADHD is described in more detail in Chapter 2. Task impersistence. A common complaint regarding children with ADHD is that they do not complete tasks. At home, parents find that they need to supervise their children more closely than the parents of children of the same age. Simple chores like getting dressed in the morning take a long time. Parents often report that nothing would get done if I were not on my child's back all the time. These children often forget what they're asked to do. Their parents may find them staring into space or doing something quite different. Impersistence is a particular problem with schoolwork, as children with ADHD often do not finish their set work. They may gaze out of the window, do something else, or start disrupting other children. As they get into high school and examinations become more important, their impersistence can seriously affect academic results, as children with ADHD may not complete their examination papers within the allotted time. Disorganization. Children with ADHD find it very difficult to follow sequences without a great deal of supervision. When such supervision is not available, they become muddled and disorganized. Forgetfulness. An excellent memory for what happened last year, but he cannot remember what happened yesterday, is a common description of the child with ADHD. Many know their multiplication or spelling list immediately after it has been taught, but cannot recall it the next day. Surprisingly, they often remember in great detail events that happened a long time ago. Such children may have difficulty following an instruction with more than one part, becoming distracted or lost midway through carrying it out. They're often very absent-minded. Homework is forgotten at school, pens are misplaced, and possessions lost. Features of the combined type of ADHD. Children with the combined type have all the features present in the inattentive type combined with impulsivity and/or hyperactivity. Impulsivity. Children with the impulsive type of ADHD have great difficulty stopping to think before they act. As Dennis the Menace said, "By the time I think about it, I've done it." Children with this form of ADHD often do the first thing that comes into their heads. They'll blurt out answers in class. They may say tactless things. They may take many risks. They have tremendous difficulty waiting their turn. They are the sort of children who may run out in front of a car without looking first. Because of this impulsivity, they do not learn from their mistakes. The problem is not necessarily that children with ADHD do not know the correct thing to do. They will often be able to explain in great detail what they should have done. They may also be quick to notice when others break the rules that they themselves do not obey. Nor is the problem that they do not want to do the right thing. They may be very upset and apologetic after the event. Their difficulty is in their lack of self-control. The mechanisms that control behavior in the brain seem to be unreliable in the child with ADHD. ADHD is a problem of performance, not of knowledge. As Dr. Russell Barkley, one of the foremost experts on this condition, put it, ADHD is not a matter of not knowing what to do, but of not being able to do what you know. Impulsivity in children with ADHD is discussed further in Chapter 3. Overactivity, hyperactivity. Some children with ADHD are continually on the go. They may be so restless as to seem to be driven by a motor. Such a child often cannot remain seated, even for a few moments. He may wander around the classroom, and the teacher may have great difficulty keeping him on his seat. Even when seated, some part of him may always be squirming. In the past, such overactivity or hyperactivity was considered an essential feature of ADHD. We now know that while most children with ADHD are more fidgety or restless than other children when carefully observed, many children with ADHD are not overactive. Even those who are highly active when young may become less active than their peers as they get older, a transformation that has been described as changing from being a flipper to a flopper in the sense of continually flopping down in front of the TV. Overactivity in ADHD is discussed in Chapter 4. Noisiness. Children with the combined type of ADHD are often boisterous and loud. They find it difficult to engage in activities quietly. Some talk excessively, driving other family members to distraction. Some children have a habit of making all manner of repetitive noises that sound like an animal or a motor. They may be quiet for a short time if reprimanded, but the noises return, often without the child being aware that he's making them. Features that may be present in either type of ADHD. Performance inconsistency. All children show some inconsistency in their performance, but this is particularly marked in children with ADHD. With a tremendous amount of effort, children with ADHD can sometimes concentrate or manage to stop and think before acting like other children, but they cannot maintain this effort most of the time. It is this performance inconsistency that has so confused observers and led to many children with ADHD being labeled as lazy or naughty. Those who do not understand the nature of ADHD think that because a child performs appropriately on certain occasions, he's simply not trying hard enough when he fails. In the words of one psychiatrist, "A child with ADHD does well once, and we hold that against him for the rest of his school career." Some situations make it easier for the child with ADHD. The child may do well with close supervision in a one-to-one setting, in a novel situation, or with someone of whom he or she is afraid. Even in these situations, improved performance will not last, and the old difficulties resurface. Low self-esteem. Children with ADHD are very hard on themselves. They may say negative things about themselves, such as, "I'm dumb." They may cry easily and be easily offended. They may feel dissatisfied with themselves even when they succeed. For example, a child with ADHD who hit a cricket ball with great power complained that his father had bowled it too softly to him. Some children with ADHD who have low self-esteem may hide this behind bravado, bragging about themselves and putting down others as a way of managing their inferiority complex. Poor self-esteem in ADHD and the different types of behavior it may give rise to are discussed in Chapter 7. Poor working memory. The memory difficulties of children with ADHD are not confined to the forgetfulness described earlier in this chapter. A type of short-term memory known as working memory may also be impaired in children with ADHD. The brain's working memory holds thoughts like a series of
Sample complete. Ready to continue?